Hi.
And we have special guests.
I thought I had to get in there like before you called us up or what. I don't know. I messed it up already. I messed our intro, Elaine. I'm sorry.
Oh, let's start it again from the top.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Tom Bassel.
I'm Zee Garcia.
I'm Elaine.
And I'm Efka from No Pun Included. We even have a t-shirt. See, there you go. Representing our brand.
And we have special guests today. Oh, wait. Oh, you said your names already.
I'm Tom Bassel.
And we have
All
special
right. No,
guest today,
Bring
Zee
the dog
Garcia.
in if you like.
Wait. Anyway, it's
And
nice
I'm
to have
Efka
you
from
guys
the Dice
to
Tower.
join us.
I don't
All
know
right.
where I'm from.
Now that everyone's super confused, Efka and Elaine run a video channel and podcast, No Pun Included, and you should check it out for in-depth reviews of board games, thoughtful reviews of board games, and a side of humor. Is that right?
I would say so, yeah. A sousant of humor.
I was going to say frisson, so yeah, it's nice. We spend too much time together, clearly.
Clearly.
Well, anyhow, before we get started, folks, welcome back to the middle of the Summer Spectacular. We have a contest going on right now that you can enter. If you email us at contest@dicetower.com, you can win one of our t-shirts, giving out 3 of them, new superhero t-shirts, Super Dice Person t-shirts, or Summer Spectacular or Dice Tower East. You can see all of them on our website. Just email us at contest@dicetower.com. In the subject line, put the word puns, P-U-N-S. And then in the description, put your name and address. And tomorrow we'll post some winners on the website.
What did you say the email address
you're emailing
was?
them right now,
No.
aren't you?
No, guys.
Well, they can enter, I think. We said Dice Tower employees and families. That's it.
Yeah.
That's not
Technically,
us.
you can enter then.
Wait.
Can't stop me then.
All right. Well, the contest runs after this thing. All right, folks. Well, 2020 will be known as the year of only a few conventions. All the ones that managed to.
That's how I'm going to remember it.
Shut up. That's how I'm going to remember it.
Stronger words for 2020, I think. Yeah. Me and 2020 are going to have some things to say to each other.
Have you been to a convention this year, Z?
No, wait. No. Yes. Yeah, we went to
So long ago now.
Vegas, right? That was this year, Tom. Right?
It was indeed. But I don't believe anyone heard anything you just said, Z, since the computer froze up.
Cool. I said, hi, everybody. Welcome. We have special guests today. Tom Vassal is joining me.
I didn't say all the way.
Oh, okay.
I didn't say all the way back to the beginning. All right.
Just forget what I said.
All right,
I don't
folks.
remember what I
So,
said. Let's go.
despite Zee's hatred for 2020, I wanted. Well, actually, I think y'all picked the topic here of our favorite convention experiences. This is obviously, as time goes by, this is something that we like to do quite a bit. I like to talk about these stories. I like to enjoy these events. But I do want to say I've had so many great convention experiences that if you are missing one, like if you said, wait, we played that game together, you were number 11. You just missed the list.
Yep.
What do you all think?
I'm going to steal that for me too. Because
It was really hard to choose 10.
Yeah.
Because there were so many great, like, meeting people type moments. And a couple of those did make the list. But, yeah, it was really, really tough to choose.
And you can't put in just like, oh, here's all the people I met, just to,
No, the list would
there's
be
other
endless.
things that we're doing, as well.
Like eating potato spirals.
I never had one of those potato spirals.
Okay.
I don't know
Anyway.
why people get crazy about them. Is potato spiral going to be on someone's list?
No.
Please tell me
It's
it
a
isn't.
spoiler, man. Don't.
Oh yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Like-
I guess I can't ask that.
No.
Yeah. No,
You
never
can
mind.
ask. We could be coy. We've lied in
Yeah.
the past on these lists. Of course, it's not on my list.
Fair
No, I'm
enough.
just-
Okay.
I always felt like at Essen, the lines were so long for those. I didn't want to waste my Essen time standing in line for something that is literally just a potato.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a
On a
fried potato,
stick.
right?
Spiral.
Yeah, all right. So is a curly fry. You don't see me going crazy about it.
All right, stop spoiling my entire list.
Curly fries,
All right.
spiral
Well, let's get
potatoes,
started. We're gonna
variations
we're
of curly potato.
we're gonna go through these. I think we have 40 probably different things, so we don't have tons of time. So let's get started with number 10.
Number 10.
All right, my number 10 was my one and only mega game that I've been a part of, and this happened at Dice Tower Con a few years ago. Roped into playing one of these. It sounds like absolutely the kind of thing I would not approach, because it's the idea
I was
of playing
surprised
this.
you said yes.
It's like a massively multiplayer in-person game, right? Instead of a massive multiplayer online game where you get in there, you play for a bunch of hours. This took 4 hours or 5 or something like that. I don't know. And you are part of this massive moving machine of a game. But I decided, you know what? I'm going to be a yes man. I'm going to give it a try. Let me jump in here with both feet and see if I can get into this. And indeed I did. It's on the list not because I would do it again necessarily. In fact, there's something coming up later on that I know I wouldn't do again. But because it was memorable, it was interesting, and it was outside of my comfort zone, so it stands out for me. I enjoyed it. I had a good time digging in, hanging out with everybody, making a big deal out of this bizarre mega game. So that's my number 10, my one and only mega game at Dice Tower Con.
That's a strong start.
Thank you.
It's not on my list.
That's
Well,
okay.
Zee's mega game is not on your list.
He
I
was
mean-
in it.
No,
He was in
I
it
had a
too.
great time doing it. I was in it too, and I accused Z of being a spy, which he was, but not because I thought he was, just because I was being a jerk.
Mhm.
What do you got,
Really?
Elaine?
I've kind of tried to keep off individual games off this list because otherwise, again, it could go on forever and ever. I've had so many great games at con, so mine kind of all revolve around personal experiences, I think.
Mhm.
So my number 10 is I just titled The Hotel. This was a hotel that we stayed in Indianapolis. The first time we'd ever been to America, first time we'd been to Indiana. First time we'd been to Gencon, super excited about everything. Got to the hotel, it was a heap. I can't use a politer word than that. It was a terrible hotel. It was like one of those super creepy hotels that you see in a horror film where things are breaking all the time, the lights are flickering. That may have not happened, but in my head they were.
Someone wrote Red Room on one of the doors.
Right,
You know,
exactly. There were bugs. That none of the locks worked, so like when you were sleeping, anyone could have just walked in through the door, like whatever.
Oh yeah, no. So they couldn't walk in through the door. The doors were locked, but they didn't give us any keys because none of the keys were
Right.
working. So if you wanted
This
to
is
get
true.
into your room,
Yeah, you had to get the nice
like find a
receptionist to
person.
get you. But the reason it's my number 10, I think, is because we met Frank West, who is from the who designed the City of Kings. And it was just such a kind of, we both looked at each other and went, this hotel's terrible, isn't it? Yeah. Yes. And it was both like, for us, it was because it was our first experience of America and everything. It was just such a funny moment. And it was such a nice moment of sitting in this crummy hotel, just like in the dark, because hardly any of the lights worked, playing games. It was just such a nice time. That's why that's my number 10.
I like it.
Welcome to America.
Yeah, it's an awful first impression, but you turned it into a positive.
It was great. It was great.
I like
Yeah. I'll have more stories about that hotel later on. So my number 10 is also hotel related, but it is hotel breakfasts. Because hotel breakfasts are the best. It's where you see all the people that you're going to hopefully hang out with throughout the day, because you're like, oh, hey, and you start conversations and plans start happening and things start happening. And especially if you're in Essen, the breakfasts are amazing. So the hotel we've been staying at, it's only cold breakfast, but like the spread is ridiculous. There's, I don't know, 10 different kinds of meats and fresh pastries and so they have these boiled eggs and they draw like little faces or sometimes like board game names. Like, so there was an egg that said Gloomhaven and on the O's it had little googly eyes and stuff, right?
I don't recommend eating an egg that says Gloomhaven.
You never know what's inside it.
Yeah.
It might not be a chicken egg.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about good food and good people, and it's the start of the day, and you're feeling really positive, and it just puts you in a good mind frame.
That's true. Everyone's not exhausted from the day yet at those breakfasts. Yeah. So
I'm normally exhausted from the night.
All right, my number 10.
Well, yeah.
Well, that's true. But at night, when you go to the dinner at these hotels, everyone's kind of like this. Just, you know.
Yeah.
All right, my number 10 happened at Origins 2009. And this could be conflated with a lot that we've done even more recently, but that was a Wits and Wagers game. So Wits and Wagers is something that we tend to run at many of our conventions, and it started because of Origins 2009. I liked the idea of Wits and Wagers. I heard it was a game show. We played in this. I didn't run the one at Origins 2009. We started running them after that, and we were so noisy and so much having fun that multiple times nearby game tables came up and asked us to be quiet, which at the time I was like, heavy gamers, Euro gamers, war gamers, we were having fun. How dare you? Now that I've been annoyed by games like this, and I understand what they were thinking, but Alan Moon was in this game and he was acting extremely weird, which I thought was an anomaly. And maybe should have prepared me for other events that happened at the Dice Tower in future years.
Don't spoil my list. Do not spoil my list now. That's coming up, baby.
Such a raucous time, though, and it was so fun that when I found out they weren't going to do it the following year, me and Eric offered to do it, and then that was that. We just ran them consistently. Mm-hmm. But there's something about that event that was just so much fun. I enjoyed it. So Wits and Wagers.
Number 9.
What were you saying, Efka?
What were you saying, Efka?
I was saying I remember playing in one of your Wits and Wagers event at UK Games Expo. But we said yeah, and then I forgot about it, and then we were late. And it was really embarrassing.
Oh, yeah.
Let's move on.
Adding anything to your schedule. Yeah, adding anything to your schedule like that when you're in the middle of a convention is always a risk that it'll fall through the cracks because your mind is sort of moving. You're in the race already, you know. So yeah. I mean, Tom does harbor a lot of strong feelings against you because of it. He talks about it all the time. Remember that time?
I can imagine that. Yeah.
But it's, you know. All right, my number 9 is also a game that's all going to be games, but this one happens to be one. And I'm mainly picking sort of big events. This one was playing a scenario, sort of a large group scenario for Arkham Horror, the card game. This is called Labyrinths of Lunacy. You play multiple teams. And this also was not just the game setting. This happened at Midgard, which is a convention that takes place in Iceland. So we went over there. They had invited me to join this game even before we flew over. So I said, yep, sure. Again, one of those things where I thought, this sounds outside of my typical scope for something I want to do. Like 3 or 4 teams simultaneously playing this game, and then you share information at specific key moments between the teams. So it's like a really weird sort of experiment. But I thought, you know what? I'll do it. I'm going to be in a beautiful place. I'll give it a try. And I had a good time. It was really long. Took hours and hours. But everybody was lovely. That was the main thing that put it on the list for me. I think everybody was just fantastic. Nobody was being really, quote unquote, serious about it. Nobody was, taking it too seriously. So I was able to really ease into it. We were joking, having a good time, laughing. getting into it, and it just a great taste in my mouth. So my number 9, Labyrinths of Lunacy scenario at Midgard in Iceland.
Awesome. My number 9 is demoing code names at Expo. So we went to Expo and we demoed for CGE one year.
Yeah, very early on. Yeah.
Very, very early on. And the reason I liked it so much was because so many people, I learned it, obviously, and it was before it was released or just as it was released.
I think it was before it was released. Yeah, nobody knew what Codenames was yet.
Yeah, nobody knew what it was. And I learned it and I thought, is this game really good? But I kind of dismissed it. And then everybody that came over just loved it. And it felt like I'd opened a box and let out a genie. Yeah. And it was,
you didn't design Codenames, right?
Did I not?
No.
Ah, shoot. Oh well. But it felt like being part of the start of something. You know, like if you went to a Beatles concert or something.
Yeah,
or like,
No, I appreciate
it felt like that kind of energy. Yeah. And that is why at the time, after we finished that day, I kind of never wanted to play Codenames again because I demoed it for like 6 hours over and over and over again. But have played it subsequently and still really like it. So that's why that's my number 9.
Nice. My number 9 is bumping into Rodney Smith at 5 o'clock in the morning at Essenspiel in the lobby of my hotel. So this is one of the few encounters on my list, but it was just this was the very first day of Essenspiel. Like it was Thursday. So, we got in on Wednesday. We hung out with some people in the evening, met some people and everything, and had a nice time. But then I was so loaded up from emotions and excitement, I couldn't really sleep. So I slept for about 4 hours or something like that. And I got up at, I think, 5 or something, and I just couldn't sleep. And I thought, well, I can't sleep. I might as well go downstairs and sit in the lobby and read a book. And of course, I found out that the hotel breakfast was already open. So, 5 o'clock in the morning. There's pastries and coffee and whatever, and I could help myself. And I'm like, all right, I will. So I grabbed a coffee and started reading my book and just sat outside in the lobby because it wasn't that cold really. And there goes past Rodney Smith jogging.
Who had jet lag and couldn't
sleep. But the weird thing is his hotel is nowhere near ours, right? If you know Essen, ours was in the city center. His is right next to the Messe, which is where Spiel happens. And that's a good half an hour walk apart or something like that, if not more. So just bumping into him like that. And we had a good time. He was filming his vlog. Then I ended up in his vlog. Yeah. You can go watch that online somewhere. It exists. Yeah.
When I woke up, you were like, I've got a story for you.
The first time I went to Essen, I jet lag that helped too, but I woke up at 4 in the morning. I was like, I'm ready. Sat in bed, I'm ready to go. My wife's like, go to bed. I was like, I can't wait. So, all right. My number 9 is a game. It's one of the few games on this list. Well, maybe not. Anyway. This was a game of Memoir 44, and this happened also at Origins. A lot of my stuff happened at Origins. And here I was playing a mega game, 4 vs. 4, the Overlord game. And we were setting it up, and it was a new one. And I was like, I'll get these rolls. And Richard Borg walked up and said, I can help you guys. And he ran the whole game, giving us examples and advice. And it was such a cool thing. And I have to admit, I have definitely gotten more jaded towards playing with designers and publishers in the past decade, for sure. It just happens, right? I'm playing a game with Reiner Knizia. That's how it goes, But at that time, that was such a wow, the designer, this is so cool, and it was such a big, epic thing, 4 vs. 4. It just really imprinted on my brain. I had a really good time doing
Overlord
that.
is fantastic, though, isn't it? Like, it's definitely my favorite way of playing Memoir 44.
It is, but it's something, and it's something I very rarely get done except at a convention. And so it worked well here. It was the first time this scenario had ever been played, I think, by public, besides playtesters, and he was there. It was just such a neat thing all around. And I could have put a lot of this because at that time I had first experiences with many designers, and there was a lot, and every time it was special. And even now, it still is special. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like, I don't even know who Knizia is. I don't do that. But this was one of the first ones, and it was a big deal for me. So Memoir 44 with Richard Borg.
Number 8.
All right, number 8 is something I am calling the donut incident.
Ooh.
What the donut incident is, obviously. The donut incident, for those that do not know, happened at a few years ago at the Gathering of Friends, and it involves Jason Levine, who many of you might know, and we walked over the bridge over to Canada. We were checking out the falls, and we went into a little donut shop on the Canadian side. And Jason really he had been talking the whole time about wanting a maple donut. So he kept talking about the maple donut. I got to get a maple donut. He's like a wind-up toy if you don't know Jason. So we got over there. He gets in a big giant line. He finally gets his maple donut. Walks outside, talking up his maple donut. We're all following behind him, and suddenly a bird, a seagull, I guess it is, right, swoops down on him and snatches the donut from his hand, and off goes the bird with the donut. And Jason was like, if you've ever seen any footage of like a little kid dropping an ice cream fall off a cone, you've seen Jason post donut attack. So that really, like, that has stayed with all of us who were there. It's indelibly etched into our minds as this bird stealing candy from a kid, literally across the falls of Niagara. So the donut incident.
Yeah, well, what happened was that the bird tried to take it from him, and he dropped it. So he grabbed it, and in the pressure of the moment was like, I'm going to eat this before the bird came. Having dropped it on the ground of which thousands of people are walking, he's trying to shove it in his mouth. The bird keeps coming for it and gets it away from him. And I think he had 2. So he was like protecting the other donut. And then the sequel to the story is
attack. Like, he was definitely under attack by this one particularly persistent bird. It was great.
I'm sorry, that's your number 8? What's coming up next?
The sequel to the story is that Stephen Bonacore was so enamored with this, and we were all upset that nobody thought to. It happened so fast, no one had a camera rolling. So the next year we did the same thing, and we all convinced Jason to buy donuts, and then Mr. Bonacore walked behind him, filming the whole time, hoping that a bird would come out of nowhere. We couldn't. Jason found out what was going on and even held the donut up, and still nothing happened. So.
He played it off.
Yeah, no, the bird wasn't having it. It was camera shy.
Yeah, can I just very quickly say that whilst this is not on my list, the best donut I ever had in my life was at a convention. It was in Vancouver, and it was
that's true.
on a donut and a donut coffee shop called 49th and Parallel. It was a raspberry jam square filled donut with a hole in the middle. It's the best donut ever in my life.
Yeah, this is true. My number 8 is we played a multiplayer game of number 9.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how many people we ended up with. It was 82, a lot. Yeah, I think. It was over 80 for sure.
Wow.
But the reason it's my number 8 is because we had to take, I don't know how many copies of it,
20 copies of number 9.
Copies of it from the stand to the pub, and there's Efka holding them like this, trying to walk along, and they're taller than his head, so he can't see where he's going, and he's asking me where to go. At one point, they all fall down, and we have to pick them up and like try and get out of the, like.
There is a picture of this.
We're in the middle of Essen, right? So there's like 1,000 people around us. There's number 9 games flying everywhere on the floor. We're frantically scrabbling to pick them up. It was just a fantastic moment, and then the playing the game itself was
also
sublime.
fine.
It was super. It really was super. But that moment of the panic of trying to pick up 20 copies of number 9 has just stuck with me. That's why it's my number 8.
My number 8. I didn't put that in my list. I totally forgot about it.
Well, that's just as well, because I did. Also, can I just say, the dog is pulling on my socks, so if I'm like fidgeting about,
yeah, same here. I just licked my hand. She's
very fidgety.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anywho, my number 8 is meeting someone Lithuanian at Essen Spiel. I mean, so I'm Lithuanian, in case people watching don't know. So it's not often that Lithuanian people comment on our videos. Sometimes they do, and you'll see their Lithuanian name, or they'll write something in Lithuanian because they'll recognize that my name is Lithuanian, Right. So they'll know, and yeah, but it's a rare moment, but never, like, only once in my life, someone straight up walked to me and talked to me in Lithuanian because they knew who I was.
Oh.
Because of no pun included. Yeah. And it caught me off guard because I haven't really been in Lithuania for like a good 5 years. I don't really have any Lithuanian friends here, so I don't really use my language that much. So it definitely sort of even my own like native language skills deteriorate a little bit, I think. So it was a strange moment where suddenly I was like, oh, I better make a good impression, except I can't because I probably sound like I have an accent for my own language right now. But it was a very strange, surreal moment, and I definitely remember it for some reason. I don't know, just stuck in my brain.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, like being walked up to by someone you're not expecting, and like someone who's bringing something to the conversation you're not expecting. Like my version of that is someone recognized me at a pharmacy, and I just wasn't expecting it. I'm not in that setting, you know. Somebody said, "You're Zee from the Dice Tower," and I was like, just really thrown because I wasn't expecting anyone to say that to me. Not out of convention.
Running for the door.
So I totally get that. Someone talking to you in your own language would throw you. That's cool. That's a cool story.
All right, my number 8 is Origins. Again, this is the last Origins for a bit, but back in the day, we don't do it anymore because it's very infeasible. But even now in our Kickstarter, we do meals with people where you can back us and we'll eat with you at a convention. And I would say almost always, like 99% of the time, these have been some of the best experiences I've had at conventions. They're fantastic. But way back when we were just doing a podcast, I put out the call. I said, we're going to Origins and we want to do a Dice Tower dinner. If anyone wants to eat with us, let us know. And I think 17 people showed up, which blew our minds, that 17 people would want to eat with us.
Wow.
We had at Max and Irma's, and it took forever to get served, and we had a good time. And I can't remember almost any of these people's names. I apologize. But it was such a good time. It just astounded us that anyone listened to the show and cared to eat with us, and that they would go out of their way to do that. And I don't know, that just was a special moment for me. I still remember that. It was cozy. It was small. We stopped doing it when we hit like 150. We're like, all right, we can't fit that many people. And we took over like a whole restaurant, and I was like, yeah, okay, it's too much work. But they were all good, but that first one just felt special.
Oh, that's nice.
Number 7.
All right, my number 7 is going to be a little more personal, just because the what?
The pizza incident.
The pizza incident. It's a sequel. No, it's it's going to be less sort of understandable, I think, because it's just one game I really enjoyed. And this is the first time I played a game at Dice Tower East or anywhere, I should say, because I've played games with them again, with Liz and Chappie, who are a couple that attends several of our events, and they are just absolutely wonderful. I love them. They are some of my favorite people. If they are at some event of ours, a retreat or a convention or what have you, I'll make time. I'll be sure to make time to play at least one game with them, because they make me feel better once that game is over. I feel better than when I started, right? They have that kind of energy. And I met them at Dice Tower East, and we played a game of Ghost Stories, sat down, I taught them the game. They were really bright and energetic and getting into it, and we actually won the game, which is a very tough game if you've played Ghost Stories.
Yeah.
So that's why it's my number 7, the memory of both meeting them, playing a game I really enjoy, and beating that game made that the highlight of the entirety of Dice Tower East for me. So that's my number 7.
That's super lovely. My number 7, and don't get too big-headed about this, is being invited as a guest on the Dice Tower at Expo. And the reason that is my number 7 is because...
And not number 1.
Well, I mean, no, you don't want to get them too big-headed, right?
Yeah.
The reason that is my number 7 is because it felt like such a big difference, because I didn't think anyone in the world knew or cared who we were at all.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have an equivalent, but in the UK, like if a puppet is made out of you, like if you're a politician or an actor, and a puppet is made out of you, or you're satirized, you feel like you've made it. And that's how I kind of felt.
This is a cultural dynamic I've not learned about England yet. I've lived here for 12 years.
You're surprised. And
Puppets.
that's how I felt. Like I didn't think anybody knew who we were or cared who we were, and suddenly we were being invited on the Dice Tower, not just anything. And it was just
the Dice Tower.
And the Dice Tower. That's a radio presenter. And it I've lost my train of thought. It was so neat, and it's just stuck with me. And everyone was so lovely, and it was just such a nice memory.
My number 7 is the opposite of a nice memory.
Oh.
It is learning 504 in a hotel room in Essenspiel.
Ooh, wow.
I mean,
that sticks with you for the rest of your life.
What game?
504. How many games are in 504?
I don't know.
504. Anyway, so if you're not familiar with 504, it came out some years ago. And I think this was my second Essen or something like that. And it was touted as the revolutionary game that will transform all games. For it had not one game in the box, but 504. And there were 9 modules. You could combine them free into one game in any way you wanted. And you could play a game of 18xx with war in it, or I don't know, drafting, or basically it's anything you wanted it to be. Make your own game. It was a nightmare. It didn't work. I mean, it worked, but most of the games were rubbish. And the rulebook was the worst rulebook to this day in my professional career as a board game reviewer that I have ever read in my life. It went from 0.1 to 0.3F. What happened to 0.3B, right? Like, it didn't make any sense. But to make it worse, I was learning this in the hotel room. And because we agreed that, well, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to teach it to you all, and then we're going to play it, right? And I wasn't on my own. There was some other people there who I was playing games with. And they watched me read this rule book and just intermittently scream at it. And they said this was their best experience of that entire Essen spiel, just watching me grapple with that thing. So I'm jealous for their good experience. I didn't have that experience.
No.
That's hilarious.
I'm glad. Yeah. I'm glad it's somebody's epic experience. I've yelled at rule books too, not necessarily that one, but. All right, my number 7. We're gonna switch to Dice Tower Con, and this is the very first Dice Tower Con in the courtyard. I was you know, Jason mentioned this the other day, how when we wanted to start a convention, we got together in committee meetings here in Miami to put something together. And that just went to pieces for many, many reasons, but mostly because of the word committee. And so when Patrick Habert said he was going to start a con in Orlando, and I said, we'll jump in that. And people, I was like, I wonder if anybody will come, from the Dice Tower. I wonder if anyone will come. This is still my last one. And when I went down to the courtyard the night before the con, I don't know if you all know, there's that special electricity in the air the day before any con. You're walking around, the con hasn't started yet. Everyone's just like brimming. You're like, it's happening tomorrow. Really pumped. Yeah. And there were just people in this courtyard playing games early because whatever day you start a convention on, people will play games the day before. It's a law. And people were playing games and eating and having a good time. And I came down and people were like, oh, Dice Tower. And they were excited. And it just felt, for the first time, like an event was ours. We'd always been intruding on other people's territory from Essen and this, I don't know. It was just a really exciting thing. And I could have just did a top 10 Dice Tower con moments, really. But this one in particular, I still remember that very first one. Most of the people who were part of Dice Tower were not at that one. It was only 300 people. I think, Z, did you miss that one?
No, I was there. I remember that night. I know exactly that feeling you're talking about.
That part, but yeah, it was just really neat to be there. So Dice Tower Con in the courtyard, season 1.
Oh. Yeah.
Number 6.
Speaking of Dice Tower events and doing things, taking risks, trying new stuff, this one was a fairly recent one that Tom decided to go ahead with because the opportunity was available. And that is, on the cruise, we did a game show on the ice rink because we had that space after an ice skating show. And they were like, well, we can give you the space. We'll put the floor down over the ice.
Right.
And then you can have your event. And Tom thought, let's do that, but let's not put down the floor. Let's instead just go out there and skate.
We'll accept
Isn't that more or less how that happened? It's basically how that happened.
They said we could have it, but we couldn't use the whole floor because they couldn't put down the floor. So we can stand on that backstage area. And I said, are we allowed to be on skates? And then when Jason heard that was that. We were on skates.
Right. So you decided I'm going to actually take to the ice instead of just be on terra firma like I should be during a game show. I did not go out and skate, for I do not know how to skate particularly well.
Was this on a boat as well?
This was on a ship, on a cruise ship. Yeah.
Ice skates on a boat. That's nice.
Yeah.
Hey, Elaine, remember that time we played Blood on the Clock Tower in the locker room of an ice skating ring?
Yeah, but we weren't on a boat and there was no ice involved.
There's a convention called Tabletop Scotland. It's in an ice skating ring, the whole convention.
Wow.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Huh. But yeah, this was just a weird thing. After it went well, I thought the game show was fine, and these guys were sort of, we were joined by the brothers Murph, and I know Eric was there, and Jason, and they were skating around in the skating rink while I was kind of reading the questions, reading things off of a screen, and after it happened, it was sort of like, okay, well, we did that. I guess we can, if there's a weird list to check things off of, I guess we can check this one off.
We're the only people in the history of humanity who ran a board game trivia show on ice.
Well, watch out.
Maybe that's something no one else has ever done.
Maybe they had it at that convention.
No, they take all the ice
on
away,
a boat.
They melt the ice. So
okay, so we're good. We got it.
There's no skating. Yeah, you got it. You got this.
The whole time I was out there, at first I was when we first got, I'm like, don't fall, don't fall. And then I was on the ice for maybe a minute, and I was like, don't drop the mic. You work in audio and video. I was like, if I fall, I was gonna break a bone before I drop that mic.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a professional right there.
I know, right?
Mine is not as surreal as that by any means. My number 6 is when we were, I'm not sure, I think it was at Expo again. Sorry, a lot of this happens at Expo, I guess.
A lot of mine were at Spiel.
That's weird, right?
Yeah.
But I played some, we did a live show at Expo, and I played some songs at Expo, and a kid came up to us, and the kid was wearing a t-shirt that had the lyrics from one of my songs. It said, "Sheep are all the friends you'll ever need." And my mind was absolutely blown, like, because the kid had gone and made that t-shirt on their own. Like, it was nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
Like, the kid had, or the family had just had this t-shirt made because they liked the song. And that was quite surreal for me.
That was one of the sweetest moments ever.
It was incredibly sweet. Yeah. And you know, we sometimes say, when we do reviews, like, should we take the swear word out? Should we bleep this? Or should we say this in a more polite way? And it was kind of one of those moments of, this is why we do bleep the swear words or whatever, because kids watch us and kids like watching us, and this is who we're doing it for.
Yeah. And parents are, sometimes they say, we like to watch your videos with our kids.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know. Yeah, it's just nice, I think.
So did you file a lawsuit against the kid?
Yeah.
No, I just...
It's ongoing, Z. They can't talk about it.
I'm sorry, you can't talk about it. Okay.
No. Yeah, we've been told not to say anything. My number 6 is the first overlap.
Really?
Yeah, it's the
Is it with
Nightmare
me?
Hotel. No.
Oh.
It's the donuts, right?
Yeah, it's the Nightmare Hotel at Gencon, which is, I don't think Elaine did justice describing just how creepy that place was. Like, so apparently the reason that hotel was so just out there was, and it looked like one of those places, you know, like once a long time ago, it used to be grand, right? And apparently that was true because it was right by the Gencon airport, like Indianapolis airport entrance. And then the entrance moved completely.
So
like,
no one went to the
like
hotel
miles
anymore.
away, right? And then no one went there, and it just slowly died. It apparently that hotel's not there anymore,
Yeah,
so
right.
it's
I'm not
closed out, right?
surprised.
But it was so creepy. There were no lights in there. Like the foyer was just dark. And if you wanted to like hang out and play games, you had to pretty much do it in darkness. But the TV was on, and I remember this very distinctly because it's the first time I've seen Naked and Afraid. And it was just so surreal. There's like naked people on the telly. I'm in America. This hotel is creepy.
All these naked
what is going
bottoms
on?
running around on the telly screen
Yeah.
in front of us while we're trying to play a game.
It's
I
just the most-
remember. What's funny is I know that this made an impression on you guys because I remember you telling me about this at Gen Con. I remember
The naked
Elaine.
bottoms.
I remember Elaine telling me about this while we were there. I must have run into you there, and you were relating to me at the end of one day or something. Oh, we got to go back to this really creepy hotel that we're staying at. So that made an impression.
Never stay in a hotel with Frank West, because every hotel that he's ever stayed in has had a story attached to it.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yep.
All right, my number 6. Elaine has been consistently throughout this top 10 been saying the Expo. I'm pretty sure she means UK Games Expo, but that is correct.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
just calling it Expo.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
Yes,
So,
I do mean UK Games Expo. We're friends, so I just
right. No,
Yeah.
no worries. So
the nickname.
and I apologize for my stereotyping, but when we first got invited to the UK Games Expo, I was somewhat nervous. I know that I'm a brash, loud American, and from everything I've seen on historical documentary movies I watched in my life, English people were very prim and proper, and I also knew that they had their own YouTubers over there, Shep and Sedan, and no pun included, and I was like, all right, we'll go,
had no
but
idea
we'll
who
hide
we
in the
were.
background because I didn't know what to expect. So when we went over there, I was also expecting it to be sunny and nice, but that's a different story. So we went there, and that first time, it was just me and Sam who went, and when the expo started, we were at the front door. We were going to say hi to anybody who might come by, and we didn't move for like 3 hours. Finally, I said, we have to go. and we were just swarmed with exuberantly friendly people.
Ah.
And then after playing the games with people, I was like, wow, the trash talking and back and forth. I just wasn't expecting it. Again, I don't know if I thought it was going to hold a teacup or something, but it was more rollicking and jolly than I had ever expected, and such an overwhelming, nice. I won't forget that. It was superb. It's the first time we've had to like leave because people were talking to us, rather than like look around like, I guess I'll go. No, we just were like, I'm sorry, we have to go. And it was such a spectacular time. So I call it the UK Games Expo Rush.
We're enthusiastic as a nation.
Yeah,
It's not always a good thing, but
yeah.
Number 5.
All right, my number 5 is the one thing I picked on here, I think, pretty much, that was sort of into elitist sort of, something I wanted to not put on the list too much. But I got to do a thing with someone you're not going to get to do a thing with, right? I'll allow myself one, and this is the one. This was at Gencon. Well, you know what I mean. I just don't want to. I don't want this to be a list of like 10 things nobody else can do. That's lame. So this one, my 5 is at Gencon 1 year where I got to go behind closed doors. I think it was the Asmodee booth or like the Repos production booth, something like that. And I got to see an early, like basically done, but it was not a printed, it was a prototype version of Seven Wonders Duel. And Bruno Catala, the designer, one of the co-designers, he invited me over. He took me in this little room and then played against me. And the whole time, I just felt really, again, we keep saying the word surreal in this list, but it felt kind of surreal. I was like, I'm sitting in this private space that's obviously for business, right? For them. It's not part of the show floor. Playing this game that's not even out with Bruno Catala. He's just hanging out with me, and I'm having a fantastic time, and I feel really, like, special. You know what I mean? And I won, which I usually don't remember if I win or lose games, but that one made an impression. So, yeah, I just had a fantastic time playing with him, getting to go in this little bubble in the middle of the craziness that is Gencon, right on the floor.
Yeah.
And this game. So, that's my 5.
That's like going behind the scenes is worth number 5 on its own. Whatever you do there. My number 5 is our first Expo, as no pun included, because we'd been to Expo before. What?
No, this is. I think I know where this
Why
is
are you
going.
shaking your head?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you probably do. And it was great. I loved Expo, but the first year that we took cameras and we took tripods and we, took microphones and all kinds of stuff like that. And we did some interviewing of people, which was awful. And that's why we don't do that, because we learned that we were absolutely dreadful at interviewing anyone. But that actually having that kind of purpose of, we're no pun included, and we're at Expo doing a job, and we're going to put this on YouTube or whatever. Like it was so silly because I mean, we didn't know what we were doing at all.
No,
we
no
really
idea.
didn't.
Yeah.
But that nice,
like we were at a board game convention doing board game coverage, and that was cool, right?
Yeah, well, I'm a journalist now. This is what I do. And it's just really, I remember standing outside of the Hilton Hotel, and I said to Efka, wow, we're journalists. And which was totally stupid, but
look at us now, Elaine.
I know, where did it all go wrong? That's why it's my number 5.
My number 5 is playing a prototype of Seven Wonders Duel with Bruno Catala.
No way! Awesome.
No.
Okay.
It was watching. Your number is watching. You were watching Bruno with some guy you didn't recognize playing the prototype. You're like, who are these people? Let me jump in here.
my number 5 is filming the Shucks documentary at the Shucks convention in Vancouver.
That's fair.
So we asked the fellows from Shut Up and Sit Down if they thought, so our whole pitch to them was like, look, you did your first Shucks and you brought back some footage from that Shucks, and that footage was basically publishers talking about their games. And we didn't see anything of the convention. We have no idea.
No, that's true.
What it looks like what are you lads doing there? And I said, why don't me and Elaine come and we'll film it, right?
Mm.
So that was
journalists.
Yeah, like a documentary, right?
Mm.
And I don't know, it was so weird and surreal just going about everywhere. Like we could go anywhere, film anything. Nothing was locked away from us, and we just wandering around with the camera, being very candid. And it doesn't, to me, part of this moment isn't even the fact that it was Shucks or that it was in Vancouver or whatever. It's just the ability to do that. That was something very, very different. And then also when I was interviewing them, I got to really kind of sink my teeth into the conversation.
Oh, okay.
and get some very raw, honest answers out of them. So that was really nice. I don't know. I never got to do that before in my life, and just filming a documentary was fun.
There was that one time. So when I was asking people, do you mind if I film you a little bit for Shut Up and Sit Down? And I said to this one person, do you mind if I film you a bit for Shut Up and Sit Down? And she said, who? And I was like, oh. And I said, for the Shucks documentary. She said, no. And I was like, oh, I'm really sorry to have bothered you. And I walked off, and that was the end of that. And I saw her turn to someone and go, what, who's that? What was that? And I just thought, oh gosh. And it kind of put me off. But we did it.
Yeah,
we did it.
Mm.
Oh, that's me. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's you.
Caught up in that story.
I thought you
trying
were
to figure out who that lady was.
processing some really important comeback.
No, all right. My number 5 is I like to run events at conventions a lot, and some events are more fun to run than others. And my favorite event is the kids pitch car event that I run at Dice Tower Con. I started pitch car. I thought, hey, this would be a fun game to play at cons. And what happened in my first few pitch cars was there was one kid who was amazingly good. And there was one kid who was amazingly bad. No one in particular. It's just like in every game. So one kid would be shooting, and all the adults are like, wow. And then there was one kid who would be far behind, almost in tears. And, everyone's like, oh, you can make it. So I thought, what I'll do is I will separate out the kids and have their own thing. And 15 and now sometimes 30 kids show up for this, and they're playing pitch car. And I do the kids and the adults, and a few years ago switched it to do the adults, I think, first, because the kids are way better. They're more fun. Mm-hmm. They're better sports. And it's one of the only events I do where every time anybody does anything, all the kids cheer. If I call something the jump of doom or the swirl of death, they all chant it really loudly. They have a great time. Yes, I have to tell them not to crowd the table all the time and to move back and to remember it's their turn, and where'd they go? They're in the bathroom somewhere. But it is such a good time. I look forward to it every year. I'm upset because I would be doing it right now. At this moment, I'd be running that, and it's such a good time. To the point where if there's a kids get together anywhere, I'm like, I could bring something for the kids. I got my pitch car stuff,
Nice.
So much fun. And yes, I like playing with adults a lot, but sometimes kids are better. And when it comes to pitch car, that's the case.
Sounds like an absolute nightmare.
Number 4.
All right, my number 4. Somebody in the comments I saw just mentioned, I thought Z was going to talk about pandemic on my last one. Well, no, I'm going to talk about pandemic now. My number 4 was joining Eric Summerer for a pandemic survival event that I got asked to join after he and Dave Luza did well and placed and advanced. I think they did this at Essen, and they were supposed to go on to a next round of Pandemic Survival at Gencon, but Dave Luzon wasn't going to make it. So Eric asked me if I wanted to join him, and I said, again, being a yes man, this is the kind of thing I normally pass on. I said yes. Partly, or a big part of it, was because it was Eric, and I really don't get to see him very often, and I love Eric. He always, I don't know, I like hanging out with Eric quite a bit. But this is the other thing I talked earlier about, not really wanting to do a mega game again. Well, this was interesting. I don't think I want to do Pandemic Survival again. It's very stressful. It's very high intensity. You are all playing. They've got little tables set up with the game, an identical copy, identically set up of the game of Pandemic. And then you're timed for your actions. So they give you 90 seconds or whatever, and you must complete your turn in 90 seconds. Then they make something happen to all the games that all look the same. So you really are playing an identical game where there is no chance you all are being affected equally. And then you're back on the clock, and you can't talk strategy except for like a little time window they give you. Like, it's just, they mean it. Like, this is a contest.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it. Like, I had a good time doing it, and it was definitely a unique experience. But you gotta like that level of competition, that level of pressure, and I really don't. It's not for me.
That sounds stressful. Yeah.
It is, right.
I was watching from a distance because they don't want let people get too close, and I was recording a little bit because I wanted to watch the two champions of Pandemic crush the opposition, which didn't happen. But no. I was stressed, and then they took a break in between because for some reason the Gencon parade walked by halfway through, and they could barely talk. Both of them, they're just like, they were so stressed. I enjoyed it a little bit more because I wasn't in it.
Yeah, I had a good time with it, like I said, and it was neat sharing that with Eric. But yeah, real stress. So there you go. That's my pick.
My number 4 is trying to find hidden gems at Essen. Last year.
Last year.
Goodness me, it feels like it was years ago. Partly because doing the research for it, I was looking on Board Game Geek and at like press releases for Essen of things that I never would have looked at before. And there was one particular game that I was so disappointed because it ended up never being at Essen. I can't remember what it was called. It was like
something
Boris Bees and Bicycles or something like this.
Boris Bees and Bicycles,
no, was it that?
I think so.
It sounded so bizarre. And it ended up not getting there, which was a real shame. But it was a lot of fun doing the research.
The whole booth was just a note that said, "Sorry, we're not here," and that was it, right?
Sorry, didn't come.
Yeah,
that was it. But it was neat to go around looking at games and getting little demos of games as well that I hadn't heard of or that I would have walked by normally, and I really enjoyed that. Picked up a few. Some of them we did a little video on it, and the whole experience was just a nice time. And I know other people have done that as well, tried to find hidden gems, but I had a really nice time doing it, and I'd do it again.
And you found T-Rex's Holiday, which was genuinely a great game.
That is a good game. Yeah, that's my number 4.
Nice.
Oh, it's me.
It's you.
Yeah. My number 4 is I guess one of those big experience moments when we played Twilight Imperium 4 at Gencon. Yeah. It was the year at Gencon when Twilight Imperium 4 came out. And obviously I went and got a copy, right? Because I liked the game. I liked Free a lot. And it was a thing where I think like they said they weren't gonna have any, and suddenly it was happening. They were selling copies, So I queued up in the morning, but I queued up just to get a copy, right? Like I'll take it home, I'll learn the rules, we'll play it, right? Yeah. Never ever did I imagine that I would convince my friends to actually play it there and then. right? Like, and this is, most of us are there for a reason. We're board game reviewers. I was hanging out with Frank as well, who, he's a board game publisher. I was hanging out with John. He's from John Cox from John Gets Games. He was also, a board game reviewer. We're there with, meetings and, finding new games and, seeing what's hot or whatever, right? Like, we're busy. We don't have time to play Twilight Imperium 4, and we play Twilight Imperium 4. And
yeah, we did.
And not only did we play it, it was also a group of people who all like sort of tried Twilight Imperium 3, and they're like, it's all right, it's not really for me. And then we were sitting there and all of us going, is this game amazing or what, right? And
we played it until we got chucked out the restaurant, didn't we?
Out of the hotel. No, we were in the hotel.
We were in the restaurant part of it, and we got chucked out of it.
Yeah, I
think
think
1 o'clock or something.
Yeah, well, I think we said we would play for like a certain amount of time, and
6
if we went,
hours or something.
Yeah, if we weren't done by then, yeah. So
just 6 hours.
Well, hey, it was us playing it for the first time, and also in a really crowded room. So it's gonna take a while. But yeah, no, it was just really good. It was just really good. We didn't finish that game, but it's just the fact that we did it.
We've never finished that game.
Huh?
We've never finished that game.
No, we never finished that game. No, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
All right, my number 4, back to Origins. I had been going to Origins is the convention I've gone to the most in my life. And I always kind of dreamed of getting a booth, but when I found out that they were for unbelievably high prices, maybe $500, that I could never afford something that expensive, that put my mind. And so in 2012, it was a very tumultuous year for my life. That was the year Jack had just died prior, and we started the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund, and I was working with a software company that never actually did anything, but they were going to have a booth at Origins, and they said, would you like half the booth? And I was like, what? Our own booth. This is so exciting. And then we also were doing it with Clever Mojo Games, who made Alien Frontiers, and some unknown upstart, Mr. Bonacore, asked if we could have the fourth part of that booth. And so we had this booth, and I was like, all right, so we're going to have a booth. We're going to advertise Jack Vassell Memorial Fund. But how do we do that? I know. We'll get companies to give us games, and we'll give away raffle games every day. And we got a couple hundred games. I couldn't believe how many games we got from publishers. And so we said, sign up to get emails from the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund, which, by the way, I learned was a bad mistake later on when I went home and realized I had to transcribe people's writing to actual emails. From now on, you type it in. But anyhow, and then you get a raffle ticket. And then we just talked to people and had a great time. But every evening, right before the hall closed, we would call out raffle numbers. So we had Bart, the chief, show up, and he read them in a booming voice. And each day, the number of people who showed up got bigger and bigger to the point where we were shutting down the whole aisle area. And I felt slightly bad for all the booths near us. I would feel worse now. But at the time, I was like, oh, this is great. And it was. It was just phenomenally. You were shouting out numbers. People were excited that they won games. And I felt like, I should say, we were doing something good, right? It wasn't just I was, we were the Dice Tower, and I know that's why some people stopped by. The Dice Tower was not very big in 2012, but just those people coming by and getting excited about free games and hanging out with these publishers, and the publishers were actually nice to me. And the one publisher, I even started snarking with the one publisher, and that turned into a whole thing, and it was just a great time. I really remember that Origins, 2012.
That's brilliant.
Number 3.
All right, my number 3 was another bizarre show that we did as the Dice Tower, and this was at Gencon, our first singing show. Idea, for some reason, we wanted to give a personality to each of the live shows, and so, correct me if I'm wrong here, Tom, but you came up with the idea of doing a singing show for Gencon.
It's possible. I'll talk about this in a bit, but yes.
Okay, so it was like, all right, sure, we'll do that. So we asked for people to send in lyrics, if I'm not mistaken, and we prepped songs and did, songs on stage in front of one of the largest audiences we've had. That felt grand, and I felt nervous again on stage, which was I don't normally get like particularly nervous doing a live show on stage when I'm just talking. I don't have to like remember lines or blocking or anything. I'm just talking, just a panel show. For this, I was again nervous. That audience was fairly large, and having to practice a song and prep it and do it. So it was very memorable. The first time we did it had that special energy, that special sauce. So that's my number 3.
My number 3, and Tom, you're not going to be very impressed with this, I don't think, because you just said you're not impressed with people playing games with public designers.
No, that's not what I said.
But for me, it was special. You might be bored of it by now, but for me, it was really special. I didn't say it was
bored. I said
I played the Networks with Gil Hover, and the reason it's my number 3 was because I had never played a game with a board game designer before.
Right. Okay.
And he was so, I think we'd met him already in the bar of the convention, and like we were all chatting and everything. And then he was like, "Hey, I've got this kind of new game. Do you wanna come over and try it?" And there was 4 of us, and we've learned the pitfalls of like being friends with designers or publishers or whatever.
Yeah.
But at that point, it was some time ago. We didn't know this, and I had such a lovely time, and he was so lovely, and it's a relationship that has kind of continued, and we still can't review his games
like that,
now.
And,
so that's why that's my number 3.
My number 3 is something that completely escaped my brain right now.
My story was so compelling that
okay. Oh, so
it was.
I'll be very quick. It's a little overlap with you. It's the end of our very first UK Games Expo, where we just spent being journalists, and at the end we were just like, wow, wasn't that amazing? So I think the story you told, I don't want to repeat it.
What shocked me about that was how friendly everyone was. There were these people like Matt Leacock and Eric Lang and Rich Denning,
who ran the show,
who runs UK Games Expo, and everyone was so friendly. Like
we were nobodies, and they were giving us our time.
Yeah,
they were like
these people were giving us their time.
I always remember how nice and kind and patient Matt Leacock was, and it just forever instilled in my brain. Yeah, that's it. That's me.
Yeah, Matt Leacock is definitely like that. He's that guy.
Yeah, he is. Or I often see in the movies there's the underground scene. The words underground scene don't mean a lot to me because, as a nerd, I'm not going to get very far into underground anything. I can't even get past the first level. But at Board Game Geekcon, the underground scene there is the Battling Tops tournament. And if you've never seen it, I don't know how else to explain it, because somehow they've mixed luchador masks with a game that's simply spinning tops and seeing who survives the longest. So, nowadays Beyblade's the popular thing. And it sounded ridiculous to me. And I showed up for it the first year and was so enthralled by it that I videoed it as a faux documentary. And then the following year I said, we got to be involved, because what happened was a bunch of people showed up in luchador masks. They called themselves, what was their name of their team?
Gosh, it's been
anyway,
a
they had a
long
team.
time. I don't know,
and there
Tom.
was no opposing team. It was just them. And I thought, that's weird. There should be a team. There should be rivalries. There should be WWE-esqueness in this. So I asked a few friends to do it the next year, and it spiraled out of control. Bonacor. I even got Zee to do it. I think he did it once, and then he disappeared after that. And we all went out of masks.
It was weird.
I don't know how to explain it. And it got weirder because, so Bart, the chief, he said, if you meet me in the hotel room, I have a Battling Top set that I brought. We can practice. And I was like, all right. And so I got in my full regalia, And then I got the room wrong and knocked on the door of a random room. And when the lady answered the door, I felt really bad because there I was standing with just a guy in a mask, and I know I'm not small. So I just excused myself embarrassedly, but you couldn't see that I was embarrassed. And then I went, and here we are. We're all in this room, like 15 people, all in our costumes, and people asking each other, put makeup on and stuff, and spinning tops, and Bart's giving us strategy tips, which don't really mean anything because it's literally just spinning a top. And we went down and we shouted and yelled, and I realized that a latex mask is extremely hot for long periods of time, and it was a blast. And when it's done, I'm like, I don't think we'll ever do this again. And then we did it the next 4 years in a row. But it's just an experience. It's surreal, it's stupid, but it's something I'll never forget.
Tom made me choke on my tea.
Yeah, I saw that.
Sorry.
This is the video that, when I was not part of it, the video I took, you can find it
I
on
want
our
to see this documentary.
Somewhere. What's it called?
Because some of the people...
Luchadors?
I don't remember what it's called, but I'll look it up. But some of the people involved in this take it extremely seriously, or at least take it seriously.
For sure.
Right.
Number 2.
You're not. All right.
If you want to see
my number
that video,
2, a little bit of a crossover with Elaine, actually, kind of, sort of, and that is Essen. And this is, I specifically wrote down my first Essen, but honestly, the thing I like the most about Essen is that very thing you were talking about, Elaine, that idea of sort of finding strange little games you're not going to find anywhere else.
Yeah.
But I remember my very first Essen, I had done a few things with Tom already, but I was going to Essen not with the Dice Tower. I was going with a friend of mine whose father happens to live in Germany. So my friend Enrique, we call him Kiko. So we went to Germany. We went to go to Essen, and I remember we had a plan outside the door. The plan was we're gonna go straight to the Japan brand booth because they've got all these little games that run out. We heard they run out, so we're gonna run over there first.
They do run out.
They do run out.
They
run out
year.
immediately. So we were doing this thing and so that energy right before you get inside the door and all of that stuff. And then they finally open. We start, weaving our way through people. And then the strangest thing starts to happen where people start recognizing me in Germany. And they're like, hey, Zee, Dice Tower. I'm like, hey, thanks for watching. I keep going. We're running to the booth. Somebody else says it. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm like half a world away, this is so strange. So by the time I got there, I had been recognized 5 or 6 times. They had run out of pretty much every game.
No!
But it was such a strange, energetic, vibrant scene. Essen is still in my mind. This indelible memory of Essen is still about big booths with the big splashy, well-funded game right next to tiny little game that they made, a few copies of. Like, I love that the booths is just sort of anybody's there and everybody's there, You can find there anything you want. You can hunt something down and have a really special, unique expression of one person's vision of a game right next to a Hasbro game or something. So that's my number 2, is that first Essen there. The energy, the people, and what Essen manages to bring to the table. Yeah, it is special. So that's my number 2.
My number 2 is at Shucks, doing Victorian parlor games. And that is my number 2 because I don't know how it happened, but Quinn said, we spoke to Quinn's at some point, and he said that he was going to be he was thinking of doing something to do with Victorian parlour games because he was interested in them.
And you wanted to do a Victorian parlour game show for
and
like
I
a while
wanted
now.
to do and it was kind of like, why don't I do this for you? Because he said, I've no idea what to do or how to run it or whatever. So I said, why don't I do this for you? And for some reason he agreed and let me do it at like their own convention.
I remember that show was so funny. I cried with laughter.
So Victorian parlour games, it was just really an opportunity for them to all make fools of themselves, to wrap themselves in newspaper and hit each other over their heads with like biscuits on their heads and whatnot. And it was just, everyone was having a great time. Everyone was having a lovely time. The audience were, they were, I was the compere. So I wasn't playing any of these games. Yeah. And it was just so nice. It was so nice to see everyone just chilled out, relaxed, and having a good time.
It was the last show of the show as well.
Was it?
Yeah, it was the last, and then they closed the show, and that was it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because they had to do the end of the show. Still wrapped in sellotape and newspaper.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. There was one bit where.
Go ahead.
No, there was one bit where Pip was beating down, I think, Matt with a newspaper.
Yeah.
And Matt was on the floor.
And she was just, twice as
whacking him.
Yeah.
And her face was red. It was ridiculous. Everyone really got into it. It's something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds insane. I can't even picture this. I wish I'd been there for this one, I gotta say. A lot of these are the kind of thing that I'm like, all right, that sounds cool. I'm glad you made a memory. This is the one the most so far that I'm like, man, I wish I'd been there. This sounds insane.
There's a video of it. Shucks, Victorian parlour games. You can watch it. It's ridiculous.
I will watch this.
Efka.
My number 2 is in Vancouver again, but it's just Vancouver, really. Like, I went to Vancouver for the first time in my life when we went for Shucks. I've never been this far away from my home in my life. It was a 10-hour flight, and I remember just as we were flying, we caught one of those flights that are just like the plane goes along with the sunset, So you're always in sunset. So we were like in sunset for 10 hours, and then we were flying over these mountains.
Amazing.
When we reached Canada. There's mountains and ice peaks and all of that, and then we were of course ridiculously jet lagged. So we got up at 4 a.m. and we're in the city center. We don't know what to do. We're right by the pier. And so we just got out. We just got our cameras, got out, and started wandering around Vancouver Pier at 4 o'clock in the morning, watching the sunrise and filming the sunrise and taking nice pictures. And the view is so beautiful. And we took time lapses of like boats flowing and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's just really serene, beautiful moment. No one mugged us, thankfully.
What?
Were
you expecting that to happen?
I don't know. I'm in a strange new city, 4 o'clock in the morning with expensive gear,
That's true.
On the pier, right? Like, yeah, clearly foreigners.
Yeah, with "Hello, I am foreign" on our t-shirts. Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. It was just magical. There was something special about it.
My number 2, we do a lot of shows on the Dice Tower, and so most of them go really well. There's been a few erroneous shows, a few shows where things have gone wrong, including this silly string incident, which was funny at the time until we had to clean it up. I don't know if you were there for that one, Z.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But the one I'm talking about is our most, well, actually it's not our most, but it happened in 2020. And that was the final night show on the cruise. We do a lot of trivia shows, a lot of game show type things, and they're hit and miss. They usually go off really well, but some are better than others. But the one that we did at the end of the cruise was nigh perfection. Everything worked out. We had a full audience. It was the end of the cruise. Everyone was excited. Everyone had a good time. We were doing it in the ice skating rink again, but this time the floor was up. And we had Paula Deming and the Brothers Murph, and the Brothers Murph were on fire. They were on fire. We had questions where I had set up the answers that it could go funny, and it did. It just, everything went. Brian Drake came out, did a magic show to get things started. We did this show. The crowd was so into it. I don't know how to explain it, but it was that amazing. I didn't want to go to bed that night, not because of the cruise being over, but because that experience was so good. And like I said, we have a lot of shows, and sometimes after a show I go, yep, we're never doing that again. And this one I came out of saying, all right, how can we replicate this? I went to everybody involved in the show and I said, you're welcome back next year, no matter what the cost. And Jason's trying to choke me like, no, there's a cost. Well,
never said
you
that
don't
to me,
have.
Tom.
You're welcome back too. But the first one that Z mentioned, the ice skating
You
one,
never
was
said
good,
that to me,
although
Tom.
I don't remember. I don't remember much about the first one other than don't fall. That was the thing. But the second one was just fantastic.
Oh.
Finally, number 1.
All right. And
number
finally,
1.
My number 1 is the first time the original live top 10 we did at a Dice Tower convention many years ago. We had done quite a few top 10s at this point. I mean, we'd done a bunch of them.
Yes.
And we would get good feedback, which was very nice. It had been a while since it had been on stage at this point, I think, but also in front of a live audience, I should say. But also, we'd never done one of these top 10s with the people who would eventually watch them right there in the room. Yeah. And immediately, like, number 10. And we began, you could tell immediately that it was going to be different than the typical recording between Tom, Sam, and myself in the studio. The audience was right along for the ride. And, of course, that energy, they laugh, and so it feeds what you're doing. And it very quickly went off the rails with us being silly, being over the top, being extra. Of course, Tom happened to pick also a list that was perfect for this, where we decided to do, I want to say it was top 10 overrated games, Tom.
It was.
And so, of course, we're knocking down these, games that everybody loves, and you can hear the gasps in the audience when we finally set the title and the things we would say about the games. So it was a fairly small show. I remember that the very first time we did it live was
50 people, maybe.
Yeah, it was like a small room, but and like you said, only about 50 people. But the room was also fairly small, so it felt intimate. And it was just, I had a fantastic time doing it. I remember the first time we did that live very, very well. I remember that being a unique sort of important energy to where we are now. A lot of the live things we've done, I think would have gone differently if that first one hadn't gone the way it did go. So yeah, it's the original
it's the kind
live.
Of thing,
go ahead.
You feel it at the time. Like, it's not just in hindsight, like that you look back and go, oh, that was important. You feel it at the time. This is game changing.
Yeah. So that's my number 1.
My number 1 is also at Shucks. It's kind of before Shucks, though. It's still to do with the convention. So we were also doing a musical show at Shucks. And I said to Efka, how am I going to get my guitar to Canada? Like, I can't take my guitar to Canada. And I said, maybe we can look for a shop that hires one out, or I don't know what to do. And he said, well, why don't you just ask on Twitter and see if anyone will lend you their guitar? And I said, no one's ever going to lend me their guitar. This is a stupid idea. Like, why? And he said, well, just do it anyway. So I did. And I had 5 responses from people that said, it's all right, I live in Vancouver. I can give you my guitar for the show. And eventually I got one from Dan and Connie from Steeped Games. And the whole experience was just so lovely. I remember after chatting with them on Twitter, I don't cry very often, but I cried because it was so generous of them to just say, yeah, you can borrow my guitar. And I said, do you want anything for it? Like, and they were like, no, just take it. You can have it a couple of days if you want to have a practice. And it was so generous and so kind, and they were so nice.
You're not used to people's kindness, are you?
Maybe not. That's
I
why.
don't know what that says about me.
But I think wow, that's loaded. The reason it's my number one is because I think for me it just reflected, like, sometimes on Twitter, or you see the bad side of people, or you often get messages about people doing this or that, and it was so nice that we have such a good community, that the community is essentially a very, very nice community, and so generous and so kind, and it just blew me away. And that's why it's my number one.
Yeah.
My number one is your very first musical show at UK Games Expo.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Wow.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think that'll stick with me forever. And I think I know we're not doing them anymore because the second one didn't quite work the way we wanted to, because we were severely tired and jet lagged and confused.
I hallucinated. I was so jet lagged.
Yeah. So that was not as good an experience, but both of them are on YouTube. You can go watch them. The first one, it's called What Board Game Is the Song About? The first one was really good. It had Tom on it, and it had Rado and both John Perkis and John Cox as well.
I remember that.
Yeah, and nobody had any idea what the hell was going on, I think, because we said we're going to do a musical paddle show, and people were like, okay, can you be on it? And okay, what? But yeah, no, and
I can't believe people agreed to be on it, honestly.
But I think there was something, again, like Z said, there was something in the air that one just worked. It was like, oh, okay, people are responding to this and having a good time, and it was really. You were so stressed. You tripped up a couple of times.
I get stressed all the time. It's just my MO. Don't worry.
But overall, I think the show was pretty great, and I remember it very fondly.
Well, I think I was at your second one, if I'm not mistaken,
you were,
in the audience.
No, you were at the first one. Yeah.
I was at the first one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I had a ball. I had an absolute awesome time. No joke, that's probably my 11 or 12.
I
had a great time because I was blown away. I was blown away by you guys just doing something like I could, you know what I mean? Normally, if I'm watching something and they're like doing a bit or doing a whatever, I'm like, okay, this is great. It's funny. I could see myself copying this to do somewhere. You know what I mean? As a funny bit somewhere else. Just watching this, I was like, I can't touch this. I can't do any of these things. The lyrics were amazing. The playing, the strumming and the play was insanely good. I was blown away. You guys are insane.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anytime you want to borrow my guitar, Elaine, you are welcome.
I'll jam with you one day.
Well, then that makes it ironic, I suppose, that my last pick is also music, and it's a crossover with Z, and that's the Gencon show from 2014.
Oh, yeah?
Again, I'll tell you, this game show came pretty close at being perfection. It started off as a lark in my head, because Eric mentioned something about how he could sing. He sang in his church choir, and I was like, I sing in the church choir, and I think Z can sing. Let's do a music show. And so we put on our Kickstarter. I said, we'll do a music show or not. You'll see. And then when the Gencon show came and they gave us a big room, I think we had 300 people. And
wow.
It got bigger after that. But this show, everything just clicked. We had, I wasn't sure how it was going to go. So I told everyone, have your song ready. We had soundtracks ready and things like that. And Eric started it off by singing something with a bongo drum. And when he was done, Z leaned over to me and said, I hate you.
That sounds right. That sounds about right. Because when it has to do with music, I can kind of approach, I can like I was saying about the playing guitar, Elaine. It's like I can kind of carry a tune. I'll sort of get close. But if somebody else really does something spectacular, I'm like, oh boy. Okay, I'll try. So yeah, Eric bringing that voice and playing on the bongo. It's like, oh, come on, Tom, man.
And then Jeff decided to do music too. He and his kids
Then
did
I felt
Schoolhouse
better.
Rock, which was so bad I banned them from ever doing music again. But it was funny at the moment, and the crowd was eating it up.
Yes.
And then I sang, and I was super nervous, and the crowd was waving phones with lights. And then Z was even more annoyed because he thought he was last. And then Z did his song, and he was really good. He's a really good singer. And then we thought it was finished. And then Steve Bonacker came up, and he was like, I have to sing something, and just randomly sang. And the vibe was so good. It was one of those shows I said, that was so good. We're doing it next year. And then next year, in my opinion, it bombed. The year after that, I put more effort into it. It was a big show, and it went well, but it wasn't the same. I mean,
It's
it didn't
almost
help
always-
that there was.
It's almost always how that goes, though, right? Like you said, Elaine, you did that show, and then the next time it wasn't as good. When you really have one of those shows that the time is right, the energy is there, everything goes right. You try to recapture that, and it usually doesn't work. Usually.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, it's not just about having, the right people on at that time. It's also having those people be in that frame of mind that they need to be. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if you had the exact same composition of a cast, sometimes it just works, right? And sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
Well, those are our top 10 convention experiences. I know that many of you have a lot of them. I know that they've been great. As I've been listening to y'all's top 10, I thought, wow, I could just go on and on about it because you made me think of this thing that happened at a con. Seeing this game for the first time, going to this con for the first time. There's just so much of it. And I think in some ways this is cathartic because we're not going to have a lot of things on this list from this year, right? But I look forward to doing this in future years. And I look forward to meeting people. I knew who No Pun Included were before we met them at a con, but going to a con, we got to see them. If there's one thing I didn't put on here, but it's like a generalistic thing, and I don't know how to explain it other than one of the things I like best about a con is finding Efka or Rodney Smith or any other video person because there's like 30 of us in the world, and we could get in a corner and talk about stuff that I can't talk to anyone else about. And it's just good.
That's true.
I don't know how to explain it, but you're like, yes, finally we can say, what do you think about publisher A? And, oh, yeah, well, blah, 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 blah. And what kind of camera do you use for this? And we could talk about these things that no one else is really that interested in except us. And conventions allow us to meet up and do that.
Oh.
Yeah. I miss that. I miss that a lot. And I think I've been feeling it more and more. And as we were talking today, I talked a lot about spiel, and it just hit me that I'm not going to spiel this year. And I hope that when next year, if things are different, then that I don't know. I feel like we're gonna come back with a vengeance, if that makes sense. And there's gonna be a lot of lost time to
all
make
that
up
pent
for.
up energy from this year.
Yeah.
It's just gonna explode next year.
I'm never going to bed. Never. All righty. Well, thank you both for joining us, folks. If people want to check out your show, where should they go?
They can go to YouTube and search for No Pun Included, or just go to nopunincluded.com.
Yeah, we also have a podcast, which is on nopunincluded.com/podcast, or any podcast device. We type in No Pun Included, you'll find us. It's an award-nominated podcast. We were runner-up from BGG Best Podcast. So, there you go. Go listen if you don't know that we have a podcast. Not everyone does.
Next year.
You wanted to big it up.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, that's it, really. That's us.
Well, thank you, everyone, for watching. We're going to take a small break here from the airwaves. We'll be back at 3:30 with some game playing and some more stuff going on. And then tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, the Dice Tower Awards. Who won? Find out then. Thank you again, Elaine and Efka, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Zee Garcia.
I'm Elaine.
And I'm Efka.
Have fun gaming.